Mindshift, a PLCS Empowerment Collective podcast, and I am one of your hosts. Joining you today, my name is Christopher.
My name's Deb, and Christopher, I think we're almost to the end of our season.
We are almost to the end of the season, which also means that it's almost summer.
Okay, since we're talking summer and we are based out of a school district, what was summer like for you in terms of learning?
I recently had the opportunity to talk at the Go Libraries conference, and it was an awesome time. I really loved it. And a lot of what I talked about was how I spent my summers in the library. And they did free meals in the summer, so we would eat lunch there and like all of that stuff. And that's also where we started learning, because this was back in the day. So that's where we started learning how to use computers, and we learned different crafting techniques and stuff like that. Like we learned how to weave pot holders. I remember distinctly weaving pot holders. So I loved that when I was a kid in the summer.
When my kids were little, we were poor because both my husband and I were in graduate school. We had no money, and the library had the best programming. One of the things that they did in Missouri when we lived there is they would show movies outside. So you would bring your lawn chairs in a summer evening, and it would get dark, and they'd start a movie, and they'd have popcorn. And so we did stuff like that as a family all the time.
I think, being an education institution, there's a lot of talk of summer slide and what that is. And it's not going down the hot slides in the summer. It's about learning. So I'm excited. We have a guest joining us today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
My name is Kelly Warehime, and I'm the Youth Services Manager for Papillion Public Library. I've been here about 5.5 years now. So I've worked in libraries for over a decade. Before this, I was in Brooklyn Public Library as a teen librarian. And then before that, I was in Denver. So I've been in libraries all over.
I have a dumb question.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Public Library.
That's what I was going to ask.
Brooklyn, New York? Or
yes.
is there like there's a Paris, Texas,
No. Brooklyn, New York. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Different setting.
And so is Denver, and so is Papillion. They are all cool.
Yes. Yeah.
You're right, Deb. They are all cool. So I mentioned, in the chatter that Deb and I had at the beginning of the episode, summer slide. Is that a term that you've heard, I would imagine, working in libraries? And what do you think it means in a way that parents who are unfamiliar might be able to better understand?
Yeah, summer slide is a term I've always heard working in libraries. The term itself pretty much pivots towards the fact that over the summer, kids are not in the classroom on a regular basis. They're not learning over and over and over again like they are when they're in school. And therefore, different academic skills can start to deteriorate or just not be as strong as they are when they're in the classroom. They might be slightly behind when the next school year starts.
It makes sense, right? If you stop exercising for 12 weeks, you're going to feel a difference if you start exercising again. And so if we stop learning for 12 weeks, we're going to feel a difference when we start learning again and when we go back to school. And so what are some ways that parents can help with combating that summer slide a little bit?
There's a lot of things that parents can just do at home in daily conversations to help increase that learning, making learning exciting for kids. One thing that I'm a huge proponent of, at least with my kids, because I want them to be as helpful at the house as possible. So doing things like including your kids in your meal planning throughout the week. So, and you can alter this to be for different ages. So that can include having them write down what meal we're going to have. So then they're practicing their writing skills. They can also, if you have older kids, you can maybe even give them a budget to try to stay within, and then try to find, hey, what are some good sales going on at the grocery store that maybe we can incorporate that into the meal planning. If you want to play a word of the day kind of thing, you pick out a word and then make it a game that throughout the day, how many times can we use this word in our daily conversation? So there's a lot of little things, and it just falls back on talking with your child.
Kelly, I'm sitting here listening to you talk about this, that is so different from my generation. Because when I was a young parent, I never thought about summer slide. I don't think that there was any intentionality on my part. So are you seeing that with parents, that they're very intentional about seeking those kinds of enrichment activities for their kids?
I think so. I think parents are very involved with not only what their kids are learning, but how they're learning it. Just working in libraries, one of my areas that I focus on is early literacy. So like 0 to 5 age groups. And so I learn a lot about like how children's brains develop at that age and finding, again, those painless ways for kids to kind of incorporate learning into the day-to-day thing with like counting. Again, that's like one of those things that I remember as a kid growing up, always thinking like, I hate math, I'm not good at math, things like that. Well, I think a lot of that is just how you as a parent kind of talk about math with your kids. And it can be very simple things, especially with like little ones. So like if you're going up some stairs, we're going to count the steps as we're going. Very basic things like that. You can count the number of M&Ms in a cookie, kind of, just like we're going to just do a little counting here and there.
I think those are all great ideas. It's funny. I took Leo he had a checkup at the doctor this morning, and we're waiting in the examination room. He just started looking around the room and pointing things out. And he was just saying like, table, table. And I'm like, yep, what letter does that start with? And then he would say T. So those are little ways. And that was not intentional, but it's a learning activity. And so I think sometimes when parents are thinking about Summer Slide or not thinking about Summer Slide, they're still enriching their kids' learning without necessarily realizing it. And I think sometimes hearing conversations like this helps to affirm that a little bit. And, it's just silly little things like that that do make a difference with that learning piece that don't take a lot of effort on the part of parents, that I think where you're maybe not being intentional now, you're still enriching your students or your kids' learning. And there are little things like what you described, Kelly, that can help push you over into that intentional category, if you will.
Yeah. So I want to follow up on that a little bit because I want to take the opposite point of view now. I had a younger brother that had a learning disability. School was never a happy place for him. And so I'm thinking about kids who struggle. And in the summer, what I saw happen with my parents and my brother is they thought he was so miserable all year long, we don't want to do anything related to learning. We're going to totally let him just have the summer off. So I do wonder, what do we do about those kids who struggle?
I think one of the most important things to do, because every child learns differently, but I think the most important things to do is find what brings them the most joy. And so one thing I hear a lot at the library is like, I don't want my child to read graphic novels because that's not really reading. Well, to me it is. And so I think it's important to just find that thing that they truly enjoy doing, even if it's something, this sounds silly, but like playing video games. NASF is an organization that has lots of great programs. And one of the things that they like to do is that they will have some kids playing a sporting video game. But one of the kids has to be, they're not playing the game, but they have to be announcing it just like an announcer would at a football game or whatever. Being able to think that quickly about what's happening in front of you is also helping you learn. So again, I think it's just trying to find the thing that brings a kid joy and like expand on it,
You just talked about video games and playing video games, and Leo started playing video games. And so last night we were playing Kirby, and after playing, I just told him, hey, tomorrow night we're not going to play any video games. We're going to take a break from video games. And he said, well, then what am I going to do? I said, you could do all the different things. You could play Magnetiles, you could do Legos, you could do Play-Doh, you can color, you can play in your playroom. Like, you could do any of those things, any of those activities that you like to do. And he was like, sometimes I just need a break. And I was like,
we all do.
Yes.
We all need a break. That's why I
okay.
think, at least for me, like sometimes after, like at the end of workday, after the kids have gone to bed, I'm like, I just want to sit down and watch TV. I don't want to read a book. I just want to zone out. And it's like, I get that. And I think it's important to recognize when you need those breaks.
So I do want to ask a question about, because this is related to what you do when you have that downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading The Anxious Generation. So
Yep.
I'm going to give you that as a heads up here. And one of the things that the author talks about, Jonathan Haidt, is attention fragmentation. that our kids are used to having they're doing more than one thing at the same time. And it's difficult then for them to concentrate, to focus on anything.
I can see that in just like our story times, for instance. So it's 30 minutes. We sing and we dance and like we do a lot of movement, but there is like periods when it's like, okay, now we're going to sit down and listen to the book. And I do see some kids that is so hard for them. That is so hard for them. And so we try to be as accommodating as possible, kind of try to make it so that parents sit with their kid so that the parent is exhibiting the behavior you want your child to see. So like if your child is seeing you constantly on your phone or in front of a screen, they're going to mimic that behavior. So like if we're modeling good behavior and like modeling expectations, that can kind of help a child. But I think it's just important to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And, just try your best.
Even sitting down and reading a book can be really hard sometimes. And so I can understand where little kids might have a hard time sitting through story time, which is an important thing for them to be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do wonder how many of our kids get to the end of the day and like Leo, they're like, I just need a break.
I know my daughter does that because like I pick her up from kids club and we go home and she just wanders off. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. She's just like, I just want to be left alone. And so she's like, it's like, I get it. That's fine.
Well, I'm thinking about that. And, it is called summer break, right? So we're coming close to the end of our time. I have one last question for you to share with our listeners. What's your best advice for parents and guardians who want to strike that balance between summer break magic and keeping kids' minds active?
I think the best thing, and I try to teach my kids this, is be kind to yourself. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as parents to always, do the best for our kids that we can. And when we live in a technological society that we're constantly hearing things like, parenting tips, do it this way, don't do it this way. Like it can be overwhelming and stressful. And I think it's just important to be kind to yourself, put your air mask on before you put anyone else's on. So we all need breaks, including in the summer. So I do think it's important to let yourself take those breaks. And also when you're incorporating those little learning techniques just in your daily conversation, if you do that kind of like with exercising on a regular basis, it kind of just becomes a part of your day-to-day routine. And it's just like, okay, we're going to talk about our days. We are going to discuss this. We're going to incorporate math skills this way or reading skills this way, and just kind of getting into that mindset. That's kind of what I would give as advice. But again, I think it's important to not put too much pressure on yourself as a parent because it can be overwhelming.
And I think you can also rely on outside resources to help create some of that learning for your kids in the summer. You don't have to do it all yourself.
Yes.
And so tell me, what can families find at the Papillion Library this summer?
Every public library has their own version of a summer reading, or some people call it summer learning programs. And so it's important to kind of visit your local library to see which, what it is they have going on. Ours runs from June 1st to the end of July. This year, our theme is level up at your library. So everything is gaming related. They can win a whole bunch of coupons for local businesses, prizes, little trinkets, raffle tickets for larger prizes. We also are doing a Reading Dragons program for kids where they get to collect Reading Dragon cards that are similar to Pokemon cards. Very, very popular right now. And then also the entertainment programming aspect. So we have programs for all ages. So there's something for little kiddos all the way to adults, something for everybody.
And I know the answer to this question. I live in Omaha technically, and so we're members of the Omaha Public Library. We don't have a Papillion Library card. If you don't have a Papillion Library card, can you attend programming at the Papillion Library?
100%. Yes. Our programming is free and open to everybody, no matter where you live.
Also, if they don't have a library card, how can they get one?
Sure. They just need to come into Sup Memorial Library in downtown Papillion, right across the street from Runza. They need to bring photo ID and proof of address.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
I love
Kelly.
it. We'll
I
have
love it
some
too.
learning happening this summer at home and at the library. Kelly, thank you for being our guest today. And
Thank you.
you at home for listening to Mindshift. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcast. And you can visit our website at plcschools.org/Mindshift for more content. And be sure to join us next week when we'll be closing out our first season and talking about the expectations we have for our kids. So we'll see you then.